Hey, everybody, and welcome to another Spark Talk. This time we're joined by Arthur van Gerven, who's SPARQ360's CEO of the EMEA region. And Arthur, you've been working with a lot of manufacturers in tackling that challenge of sustainable supplier management. Can you tell us what you're hearing?
Yeah, there's a lot of things going on in that industry. Companies are now focusing on the implementation of CSRD, which needs to go live in January 25. And they start to really identifying their risks and to set their targets and objectives for the next years and starting to gathering data. The real challenge that pops up now with all these companies is how to get data from their suppliers and make sure they can report on that. And the second challenge we hear a lot is that how do you really can implement the improvements where you plan for in your CSRD target setting. So these are the real two big challenges companies are facing as from now.
Yeah, that sounds pretty complicated. Exactly how are companies going to get that information they need to map and hit their targets?
Well, first of all, a lot of companies don't really know how their upstream supply chain is looking. They have contact with their suppliers and their tier one suppliers or OEM suppliers, but they don't know what is behind there. And that's the big challenge. So you really actually have 3 steps to get that clear picture of your upstream supply chain. You need to map it out. First of all, you need to see who are your suppliers and try to get as much information behind that first level of suppliers. There's several ways to do it. If you know that and you know what your suppliers are, then you need to really filter them on which are the suppliers, for instance, with the largest carbon footprint impacting my emissions as a manufacturer.
Okay, so but now that's the piece where we're talking about like scope 3, right?
Yeah, scope 3 is an important one indeed. And another one where you need this information is for your CBAM reporting.
Okay.
And often you see that for both reporting, you need to know what the emissions are on a product level. And that also includes not just the CO2 for raw materials, but also the energy production plants of your suppliers are using. So it really requires a lot of information deep into your supply chain. And that is quite complex.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And manufacturers, I know there's steel and metal. What all is involved with the CBAM piece?
In fact, it's 6, at this point in time, 6 product groups. The most applicable ones indeed is steel and aluminium. Iron and steel have the same, not all products in this category, but a lot of significant products that are used in manufacturing a lot. And that's where you really need to get a lot of data.
Okay, so step 1 is mapping your supply chain and making sure you have that piece right there. What other steps are involved?
Yeah, once you did that and you have, in fact, your current state defined, what your supply chain looks and where the biggest volumes are and the biggest impact on carbon emissions, then the second step is really to combine your ambitions as a company, which you defined in your CSRD strategy, and the steps you need to take in your risk assessment and materiality assessment. And then you're going to combine that, in fact, with the information that you need also to report out on. And if you know that and you make the combination of your ambition and the required information, you can define the future state. You can define which supplies you need to get that information on and what kind of information you need to get it.
Okay, so we have everything mapped out. We combine what's going on with our company goals and objectives and our gap, and then we're working with suppliers to incorporate that into their sustainability programs. Is that kind of what you're talking about, the combination of those things?
Yeah, that's correct. You often see that companies are defining then their own data gathering process or their own list of information they require from suppliers. There are some guidelines, there is some help on the market where companies find structures in to see what kind of information do I need and what is the best way to gather that. At the end, what you want to achieve with your supply is not getting just information, but also you want to improve. Like I mentioned, as the second challenge, you want to make sure that you're going to reduce carbon emissions. You're going to improve on circularity as two main topics. You're going to make sure that there's no forced labor or child labor being used into your upstream supply chain by one of your suppliers or sub-suppliers. So in order to get all that information and make that change, you really need to collaborate with suppliers. It always requires multiple parties to really make change and to improve. So collaboration and engagement of your suppliers is really key to success in this.
Now, are there any tips, tricks, or any ways that a company in particular can attack that challenge? Because a lot of there's a lot of suppliers in many cases
Yeah.
with manufacturers.
Yeah, what we typically do is we use lean tools like value stream mapping to really get a clear understanding of your supply chain, to create that transparency. And of course, that will automatically map out where you see struggles, where you see opportunities, and potentially define kaizens, to call it in the lean terminology. But that will help to really define your current state as a tool. And secondly, there are, like I said, frameworks that can be applied to really be very specific in what kind of data you want to acquire. And there is more and more software available as well that we deploy, how you can really reach out to the suppliers and get that information in a very effective and efficient way, such a way that it is most low entry for suppliers as well as for the manufacturing company. And last but not least, there's also, like I said, it's critical to do that collaboration and work together on improvement progress and projects. So also for that, there is a tool available, or there's multiple tools available and processes to really get that collaboration between multiple parties, share best practices, create ideas, and really have an efficient way to improve processes like reduction of carbon footprint or product redesign together with your suppliers.
Okay, so you first have to get that current state, and from there you build forward, right?
Correct. Yeah, that's the steps
Okay.
you're going to do indeed. Yeah. And
Okay.
then you
Can you
can
give us
define the gaps and build a plan for that. Absolutely.
excellent? Can you give us some example of how this works?
Yeah, we did it. We work with some of our clients. And like I said, we use the lean tools to create that value stream map and to map out what their core suppliers were. And we really went to an engagement program with those suppliers to really help them to define what kind of information is available. We finally developed online tools that makes it really easy to gather that data and deploy the platform where companies can work together, where they can share information, best practice. And typically on sustainability, companies are quite transparent to share it as long as they don't have to share commercial information. They're more than willing to publish that information, which is also good for them. So setting up that kind of program is really helping to tackle this challenge of engaging suppliers and getting that data.
Okay. So we have databases for all the raw materials, right? Is that correct? And that's kind of what you're talking about pulling in?
Yeah. One of the tools indeed we use, an important one, is carbon emission accounting systems, where you can use databases in all kinds of industries and areas that relate to the certain products and the raw materials. And as soon as you get the information, the quantities, or at least the volumes that you sourced, you already have a big part of information that you can use to define your baseline and identify where your biggest polluters or the biggest contributors to your carbon emissions are. And that will then provide the input of your improvement plan. Absolutely.
Now, what is it with these new EU laws and on eco design? Help me understand kind of how that's going to play in.
Yeah, it's a new law that has been accepted by the European Union this year in 24, and it will be the framework to force companies, or at least to stimulate companies, to build a so-called digital product passport, which really contains information on your carbon emissions, your raw materials, but also the level of circularity being used in the production of that process, of that product. It's going to be deployed initially in areas with the most impact on carbon emissions, but for sure the plan is to implement that in multiple industries. So with that, you will see the impact on manufacturers that they need to, on the production side, design their products and also gather that information towards their client base, but also they need to get that information from their suppliers to really be able to create a digital passport. And that's, I would say, we're at the beginning of this, but this will really be having a big impact on the manufacturing industry in general.
Yeah, that's one that caught me off guard. I was not aware that was going to be coming down the line. So
yeah.
So we get our current state, we get our future state, we see where the gaps are, then we do the value stream mapping, identify where the most impactful is. It we say the largest impact suppliers? Is that where you start, or how do you go about attacking it? Is that
at
how
the
you
end,
prioritize?
at the end, you want to prioritize with the ones who can make the biggest impact. So that indeed is often starting with identifying the biggest carbon contributors. And the second one is also to look at where are products that has been playing an important role in circularity. And later on, you can also identify products where there's a good opportunity for circularity improvements. But again, the first filter would be focused on the carbon emissions, absolutely.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for taking the time and kind of laying out a path forward for manufacturers that are tackling supplier management. If people want to get a hold of you, what's the best way to reach you?
They can call me, they can email me, always able and willing to chat and to share the things we see in the market and best practices that we see. So my email, Gerven, as you can see in the screen, and people free to approach me and always willing to help and to support.
All right, thank you so much. And for those of you listening to audio only, it'll be in the show notes at the bottom of the screen there. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us, and thanks, Arthur, for your time.
More than welcome.